Good evening. Welcome to the Derry Town Council budget meeting of Tuesday, April 25th, 2023. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Council Chiricello.
Good evening.
Council Spencer.
Good evening.
Council Katz-Korris.
Good evening.
Council Flood.
Hello.
Council Ganassi.
Good evening.
Council McEachern. Good evening. Good evening from the chair. And also we have our town administrator and our Madam Town Clerk.
Madam Councilor,
Thank you.
Secretary.
Okay, we'll go right into it. We'll go into the budget hearing first. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing on that?
So moved, Mr.
Second.
Chair.
Okay, motion by Council Katz-Korris, seconded by Council McEachern to open the public hearing on the budget presentation. On the motion, Council Chiricello.
Yes.
Council Spencer.
Yes.
Council Katz-Korris. Council Flood.
Yes.
Council Ganassi.
Yes.
Council McEachern.
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
What if we
Public
say
hearing
no?
is now open. And our- No, we're gonna let him do the presentation. And our town administrator presenting.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Brief overview where we are with the FY24 budget.
Not working. Sorry.
Okay. All right, just an overview of the budget as we currently stand is that currently the tax rate is estimated to be $5.85, which is half the allowable increase as provided in our town charter under section 9.4. We continue to fund the collective bargaining agreements approved in FY22. We also propose to elevate two permanent part-time positions to full-time, including the last one was impacted by the FY15 fiscal crisis, which has not been addressed. We also have absorbed a new debt service resulting from the central fire and culvert replacement projects, which were approved by the council in FY23. The TIF districts are on their way to implementing their development plans. We'd like to continue the CFB funding transition from fund balance to a blend of fund balance and budget support. And we continue to utilize smaller amounts, but some funds from the Derry Economic Recovery Trust to stabilize our town finances. We're still a little bit behind, resulting from the pandemic from a year and a half ago. As you know, with inflation, we're absorbing about another $900,000 in unanticipated increases, and some of our sources, our revenue sources, are anticipating continued slow growth through the fiscal year. Looking at the projected tax rate, our gross appropriations, that's for all town services, including water, wastewater, and cable. The less estimated credits, the current veterans credit is at $526,667. Overlay to correct any problems with the tax rolls and also any problems with individual assessments, and our estimated value, which was established last year with the reval, increased by $20 million to anticipate additional growth in the community through April 1st of this past year. This has been our predominant challenge in the last couple of years. You can see the previous 5 years, the change in the consumer price index was relatively stable, which really reflected a stabilization of prices for commodities and services that we have to pay for. In the last 2 years, you can see it's really jumped up 5.9 as of December 31st of 2021 and 6.1 as of December 31st of 2022. Good news is the CPI for the month ending March of 2023 has been reduced to 4.3%. So hopefully things are tracking in the right direction. And this will give you a sense of some of the challenges we've been facing with regarding the budget variations. Get this guy out of the way.
There we go. Thank you.
Is that, you know, the gasoline diesel increase is essentially a 2-year increase because a spike in the gasoline and diesel prices really occurred after the council had approved the FY 22 budget. So it's really a catch-up for us. Employee insurances, the health insurance originally was at 14.1% increase. It's at 6.2. I was speaking with the manager in Londonderry. They had a 17.2% increase this year, so ours is at 6.2, which looks a little better. Some overtime increases. The retirement system sets their rates every other year, and their rates actually went down for this year, and that percentage rate will hold steady through FY '25. Electricity, that's a one-time blip in our costs, which represents the gap between when our contract with our third-party provider ends and the solar field at the landfill comes online. So we have included unallocated fund balance to fund that $107,000. Little catch-up on the roadway maintenance. Debt service is a significant increase, again reflective of the two major projects the council approved back in FY '23. CBA implementation is simply pretty much a 2% increase for all of our represented employees and non-represented full-time through the organization. And solid waste disposal is up $377,000. Over half of that, $200,000, is to remove some rubble from the landfill site, which is being funded through our waste tire remediation fund. Playing Tetris with this thing over here. Here we go. Put it that way. All right, as you can see in the top right of this screen is that we've been planning ever since COVID started to stabilize our funds to be able to work in some non-sustainable revenues on a declining basis to stabilize the tax rate. And you can see in the bottom left, we have the projected use of one-time revenues, which in this year's budget is currently at $559,770. And that'll be laddering down in FY '27 if all our projections remain to $120,000. This is the budget which was reviewed by the council, which shows the appropriations, the offsetting revenues, and actually what are the impacts by taxation. You can see Stacy, our tax collector, is the moneymaker here, since a lot of the revenues come through her office, so her expenses look a lot lower than our offsetting revenues. And the rest of the line items are pretty much consistent with previous years. This is most of the town operating general fund budget. And then this one is for wastewater, water, and cable, which are all self-sustaining revenues, no impact upon our tax rate. And our capital improvements funds up above. And the TIF districts, of which their budget is essentially a function of the captured assessed value in each of those districts. So in total, we anticipate raising about $27.1 million for services and property taxes. And you add the veterans credit and property overlay, we're looking at just over $28 million for an anticipated town rate of $5.85. Giving you a summary of the budget groups, the general fund is up about 3.5%. The capital is down about 53%. That really fluctuates each year, although our contributions for capital remains the same throughout lease payments. We're not proposing any capital bonds this year. We had a significant bond last year. The water fund and wastewater funds are up significantly due to things such as electrical costs and also capital improvements, which are being paid over an extended period of time. Cable's up about 5%. TIF districts, again, the amount they raise is a function of the captured assessed value, which shows a significant increase. Revenues are down 37%, but please note that in FY '23, of that $49 million in revenues, $20 million consists of the bonds. So essentially, our revenues have increased about $1.5 million from FY '23 to support operating our water and wastewater funds. And as currently constituted, the rate is increase is recommended at about 3%, which represented a $51 tax impact increase on a home assessed for $300,000. As we operate under a tax cap approved by the voters, we have to go through this exercise every year, which shows that last year's rate was at $5.68. The increase in the CPI as of December 31st was 6.1%, so the authorized rate is up to $6.03. Currently it's $5.85, which is just about half of what the allowable increase is authorized under the tax cap. On the revenue variations, our motor vehicle registrations are showing some slow growth. We're doing very well in interest income due to the interest rates on a national level. As stated previously, we have use of Derry Recovery Trust to stabilize our operating budget, and we're also using surplus funds for a couple of one-time expenses about the electrical costs we spoke of previously, and also we're required to do a salary survey for one of our collective bargaining agreements. Those are both one-time expenses, so they're appropriately used, the use of surplus on those issues. On the expense variations, as we showed on that chart, we have increases in trash disposal, insurance, debt service, moving two positions, our CBAs, and the significant increase in the debt associated with the FY23 capital projects. Now, there's also this year, similar to last year, is opportunities for consideration, is that our capacity is available for FY24 under the voter-approved tax cap, and we request council consideration in two areas. One is to address a structural deficiency in capital funding, and the other one to consider an increase in the optional veterans credit. Talking about capital improvements for a moment, this is a summary of our fixed assets, and actually the value is at the acquisition cost. So when you're looking at replacement costs, the total value of our assets here for the town is well in excess of $153 million. Now, we fund the replacement and improvements to those assets in two different ways, through the general fund and through our fund balance. Looking at our roads, we raise about $1.5 million a year in the budget for our roads. Our roads have a value just under $79 million. So the rate of replacement is about 1.9%. It's certainly not aggressive, but our team at Public Works has done a great job evaluating the road conditions, hitting those roads which are in substandard condition, particularly before they enter the stage of requiring a full depth reconstruction. All the others, the only other appropriations we have in the general fund is we pay for our marked cruiser leases on the general fund. It's about $177,000. And currently, we require about $1.5 million to fund our capital improvements program. Of that amount, $300,000 is raised by taxation, and the balance comes from fund balance, unallocated fund balance at year end, if it is available. So in summary, you know, we contribute about almost $3.2 million to capital improvements every year, which is about 2.1% of the value of our general fund fixed assets. Now, focusing upon our capital improvements program, again, we have determined through a review, and the planning board reviews our CAP every year, is that we require about $1.5 million annually to fund that program beyond roads and police cruisers. And as you can see, there was no contribution from taxation prior to FY19. I think the policy changed in FY14 or 15. In FY19, we were able to contribute $250,000. That stayed there in 20. And as debt service decreased, we've been trying to incrementally transfer those savings over to fund capital reserve. So you can see regarding the $1.5 million target, we've attained that twice in the last 6 years. FY23, we have $282,000 from taxation towards it. We're not going to know until the end of the year what our available fund balance is, and similar in 24, there's currently $300,000 in the fund. So here are some additional considerations on a long-term basis, is that fund balance contributions used to also include an allocation to our compensated absences fund. That's when employees leave our employee and they have earned time left, which we owe them per our agreements. And that was very healthily funded in FY16 or 17. So the council agreed to temporarily suspend those contributions and focus on our capital equipment, which is really in dire need of modernization. And we've accelerated that program through 18, 19, and 20. We sort of stepped back a little bit, but at some point, we're going to have to return to share any unallocated fund balance with the compensated absences fund. Another consideration is inflation will begin to erode end-of-year budget savings. You've noticed in your budget is that even though inflation is up 5%, our department managers do an excellent job managing their budget and presenting a budget. They don't just arbitrarily increase every line item by the rate of inflation. What they do is look at the areas that really impact us, like heating costs and fuel, and work on those. However, inflation will begin to erode the budget, which means there'll be less unallocated fund balance at year end, therefore less going into the capital reserve fund. And so as we made presentations for the last several years to both the planning board and the council, we felt that the allocation between tax dollars and UFB was unsustainable in the long term. And this year, where you have additional capacity as authorized by the voters, may be an opportunity to close that gap a little bit. So here's where we are, is that currently the CIP funding is at $1.5 million. We anticipate that will not change in the near term. The initial recommendation for the FY24 budget is $300,000 of taxes, 1.2 from surplus, which is the current rate of $585. So we're requesting consideration to rebalance that towards more allocation of taxes, which would be sustainable. So as you can see is that each $50,000 additional investment in the capital reserve fund equates to about one penny on the tax rate. Jumping over to the optional veterans tax credit, it was been funded at $400 since before 2016. In 2016 and 17, the council increased it by $50 each year to the current credit of $500, and every $50 increase will cost approximately $38,300, which essentially is shared by other taxpayers, and the impact is less than a penny on the tax rate. So when you add all these up, for example, for your consideration, if you can increase the budget contribution of the capital reserve fund from $300 to $650, and increase the optional veteran credit by $50 to $550, you're now looking at a gross appropriation with about $350,000 higher. You're going to cost you another $38,000 for vets credits, so the projected tax rate would be $593, which is still 10% below what the voters have authorized through the tax cap. And just to wrap this up, if you take a look at the opportunities both last year and this year, is that you were able to address critical infrastructure needs at Central Fire. Hopefully by increasing the contribution to capital reserve, you can address that structural financial deficiency. You adjusted the veterans credits, you restored all service levels fully funded from the FY15 fiscal crisis. So if you look back at last year and this year, the average CPI increase is 6%. The average rate increase we project to be 3.65% per year. So essentially, you've left 39% of the taxing capacity allowed by the voters on the table. So the available resources, which you're not expending, is about $1.2 million. And of course, that rolls in. So if you carry the savings from FY23 also to 24, those resources which the council have not expended is about $2 million after you look at adjusting the veterans and the capital reserve fund. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. My coworkers here who manage our departments, if you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you. So we're going to open it to the public first. Anyone in the public wish to come up and speak? And in the same time, anyone online? Owen?
Seeing no one rise, Mr. Chair.
Anyone in the public wish to speak?
Mr. Chairman, seeing no one rising to the occasion, I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilor McEachern to close public hearing, seconded by Councilor Spencer. On the motion, Councilor Cherichello?
Yes.
Councilor Spencer?
Yes.
Councilor Katz-Corris?
Yes.
Councilor Flood?
Yes.
Councilor Granessi?
Yes.
Councilor McEachern?
Yep.
Chair votes yes. Public hearing on this is now closed. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Cherichello?
Of course I have a question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, can you tell me, I don't know if you did the calculation. We talked about the solar panels coming on and the 6 cents per kilowatt hour. Where are we currently? Is it 14 cents or? And then I was just trying to get a feel for the savings that we'll have in the future.
Mike's been working very closely with Net Zero on that project, and Mike also negotiates a third-party electrical contract. So,
Good evening. So where we currently are is a 14-cent blended rate, which represents the cost for distribution and supply. So roughly speaking, the town's electricity is about 3.8 million kilowatt hours per year, and that goes up and down slightly based on demands and otherwise. When the solar project is delivering, we are going to be looking at 6 cents per kilowatt hour for a 25-year fixed rate whenever that comes online. We're working with a solar company to perhaps be online late in 2024. or early '25. It's really dependent upon some supply chain issues. So as Dave has mentioned, this is a one-time blip. We were hoping to catch a good timing, and it just didn't work out. We currently still have a third-party supply. So where this will end up is if you do the math on the delta, you're talking roughly between $300,000 to $350,000 per year of savings. Now, remember, some of that savings you won't see in the general fund budget because a lot of that goes to the water wastewater division. Out of that usage, you're talking roughly probably 60% of that, 60% all goes to the wastewater treatment plant. So the rest that's distributed to the fire stations, the police stations, this building, that would be the balance of that savings.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Second question I had, did anyone else have a question?
Okay, continue.
So the second question, maybe more of a statement. The fact that inflation, the CPI was 6% over the last 2 years, that's 12%. And we, as a council, the board, has not even spent up to that 6% under the tax cap. Since I've been here, and the tax cap's been in since 1993, this council has never voted to go beyond the tax cap. So you want to talk about being fiscally conservative, this town is definitely fiscally conservative and has done a tremendous job over the years. I was just taking, the number of $1.2 million that David mentioned that we could have taxed, but we did not. That's keeping money in people's pocket. And I think that really bodes well for this town. And it just shows how seriously we take the budget and the fact that, we're leaving money in people's pockets. So I was really happy with that. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm just gonna compliment all the department heads and Dave and the staff for doing a great job on the budget. And to Brian's point, keeping in mind that, and also thanks to my fellow councilors for taking into consideration the structural anomaly that David mentioned and starting to positively affect that so that, as I had said previously, future councils don't run into a problem, and we're taking care of something that needs to be done. Dave, I appreciate all the work you and the staff did, all the department heads out here. And to Brian's point, 593 is still well below where it could have been. And this does take care of a lot of issues, also helps out the vets, as Charlie had pointed out last week. So thank you. I think this is another one of many good budgets.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Dave, we're good. We don't need anything else from us at this point, right? Moving forward. All right.
So it's the 593, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so what we'll do, if there's consensus on 593, when the council formally adopts the budget next Tuesday, we'll fashion the resolution to have that bottom line number in it.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, moving on to the capital improvement plan. Could we make a motion to open the public hearing on that?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion by Council Katz-Corris to open the public hearing on the CIP hearing. Second by Council McEachran. On the motion, Council Chiricello.
Yeah.
Council Spencer.
Yep.
Council Katz-Corris.
Yes.
Council Flood.
Yes.
Council Canesi.
Yes.
Council McEachran.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Public hearing is now open. Karen.
Okay, thank you. Again, the town charter requires the council to adopt a capital improvements program prior to June 1st each year. And this is really a planning document to allow us to better plan our capital acquisitions, which usually are quite expensive. So we go through the process where, Mark Fleischer, our CFO, spends an inordinate amount of time developing this plan, meeting with department heads and trying to balance out and schedule the different capital needs so there's not a significant impact on the tax rate. It gets to my office, I review it with Mark, and then we present it to the planning board for review and consultation, and now it's here before the council for formal approval next Tuesday evening. Funding structure is similar to previous years. Water and wastewater are ultimately funded by the customers. They may receive some state revolving fund, loan funds with principal forgiveness or some grants, but the burden falls predominantly upon the customers. And the cable projects are funded through franchise fees paid by cable customers and also an equipment grant as part of our most recently negotiated contract. Regarding the general fund, a vast majority of the projects are funded through the capital reserve funds, which are replenished through a transfer from general fund surplus, which we just discussed in the last hearing. This plan is pretty much similar to seen in previous years, except there's a big blip with the fire department, which represents the construction of Central Fire Station, which wasn't there at the beginning of the process last year. Our major project is the police are looking to replace the Division Commander SUV, which is going to be 10 years old, replace tasers, looking for a grant to offset the cost of a fire department off-road gator, which will be made available to other departments as needed. We're also looking to replace our, which is going to be 21-year-old dispatch console furniture this year, and that equipment will be transferable to the new Central Fire Station upon its completion. And there is a schematic of what we believe the Central Fire Station will look like over on Rockingham Road. Major projects is DPW vehicles. We always have to replace a handful of vehicles every year. You can see these go the gamut from inspection vehicles to small plows to a skid steer and to a loader for the transfer station. As part of the bonds approved last year for culverts, $1.6 million. It's anticipated that all of the design will occur this year, the bidding will occur this year, but we expect that construction will actually occur starting next spring, given the timing, availability of contractors, and also some potential supply chain issues. Looking at Hood Park, that's a schematic, what it's going to look like once it's completed. Splash pad and a new playground to the upper right. There's going to be a pickleball court you can't see to the lower right. Also some aeration hood pond, some new benches and things. As you recall, when Mike made his presentation at the meeting last week, we were unsuccessful receiving bids on this from a GC, so Mike is looking at and reevaluating and looking at some sort of alternative delivery of this product. So we're still hoping to get this done sometimes in calendar year 2023. And that is a summary of the capital improvements program for FY '24 through '29.
Thank you. Anyone in the public wish to comment or question?
Seeing none, rise online, Mr. Chair.
Seeing none rise here locally, then I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing, Mr. Chair.
Okay, motion by Council McGuckin to close public hearing, seconded by Council Spencer. On the motion, Council Cherichello.
Yes.
Spencer.
Yes.
Council Katz-Corris.
Yes.
Council Flood.
Yes.
Council Granessi.
Yes.
Council McGuckin.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Public hearing on the CIP is now closed. Councilors. Council Cherichello.
The only thing I have a quick question is I typically get an email from Executive Councilor Janet Stevens on the executive committee up at the State House, and I did notice that they approved the water system that we put in for, I forget the name of the system. It's like $6 million.
Right.
So that was approved. I saw that, which is great. Was that number in this capital improvement plan at all?
Part of the implementation is, but predominantly, that's also an FY '23 project. And the reason why staff brought it to the council last year is really for three reasons. One, there's going to be some improvements on Shenito Road. Wanted to get those done prior to the Exit 4A corridor being constructed. There was an ARPA grant for about $1.2 million. And also the balance is on a state revolving loan fund, which the rates, as you saw, are much lower than the conventional rates. And it also carries a 30% principal forgiveness. So I think at the end of the day is that for the $6+ million in the project, I think we're going to pay under $4 million actually repayment to the state. So
Yeah.
it was timely.
I think the bond payment was like 2.035, and it said if it in fact went lower, which I doubt,
Right.
that we would pay the lower fee. But I think that's awesome that we got that. So that's all I have.
Anyone else?
Nope.
I want to echo what you had said earlier. Thank you to all the department heads and the staff for all the hard work in this budget. I know it's tedious and at times relentless, but thank you very much. The citizens appreciate it, and the citizens, I know nobody likes paying taxes, but that's what keeps us going here in the community. So with that, actually, we have another hearing. We have a meeting, May 2nd, Tuesday, May 2nd, will be a regular council meeting and the budget adoption. And also on Monday, May 1st at 3 PM in this room here, we will have the election subcommittee meeting as well, which is open to the public if anyone wishes to attend that.
If there's nothing else, Mr. Chairman, I'll make
I was
a,
just gonna make one more comment.
Yeah.
I mean, I know everybody here understands it, but I don't know if any new people in the town are watching us. You know, the tax cap that I talked about, we've had since 1993, is for the town. It doesn't include the school or the state or the county. It's just the town side. So, and many people have asked me about the tax cap and, you know, how do you like it? And I'm like, I like it because it really forces you to think about your needs and your wants in this town. And the department heads have to focus in on what they really need, and it really works well for us in this town, but that's all I had to say, is the tax cap is on the town portion. So,
Thank you for clarification for that, for those who don't know. That's a flood. Oh, nothing, you good? Thought you were gonna say something.
well, if nobody has anything else to say, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay, motion to adjourn by Council McGuckin, second by Council Spencer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Meeting adjourned.